ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
Hello, Sarah here, sharing some of my favourite guests from Conversations. This time, it's the story of Tony Bull. Tony was 11 years old when he first got in trouble with the police. He and his mates were stealing money left out for milk and firewood from around their working-class neighbourhood in Hobart. Tony could see Risdon Prison from the windows of his childhood home, and before he was very much older, he ended up inside. In prison, Tony ended up joining a unique club which also had Chopper Read as a member. And it ended up changing how people saw him and how he saw himself. Tony spent the better part of 3 decades in and out of prison, but 17 years ago, he left jail for the very last time. Hi, Tony.
How you doing?
I'm really well. Tell me about this club that you were invited to join when you were in Risdon. What was it?
It was the Spartan Debating Club. It was a debating club within Risdon Prison, and it was a life-changing experience for me and many others that I've seen. And because I was such a, I debated a lot in the yards, it was recommended that I joined the club by a couple of friends in the yard.
What was the topic of your first debate, do you remember?
Yeah, I do. Because it was an internal debate. We had internal and external debates, and this one was an internal debate just amongst the prisoners in the jail, the guys in the club. And the topic was that the Love Boat is a floating brothel.
I never debated that one at high school, Tony, I have to say. That must be a unique topic for Risdon Prison.
we had many, because we could, and, there was, for the sake of the argument, this one was a funny one. And we had lots, and, we made up our own topics along the way. And on the external debates, it was a little bit different. The outside team had to pick a topic, or we had to pick a topic. But, yeah, my first was the Love Boat is a floating brothel.
Were you nervous on that first debate? What do you remember?
I was absolutely terrified. I grew up considerably shy. Lovely house, a beautiful mum and 3 sometimes okay sisters. But, I never used to speak much, so I was absolutely terrified.
Did you have palm cards, or how did you prepare?
I had to have palm cards, I sat down for a week and typed up my argument. I was first speaker, and I had every word that I was to speak typed down on little cards. And, while I thought it had helped me, it went quite badly, actually, because I was that nervous. I got mixed up and muddled, and the cards got mixed up. So I ditched them and went on my own. And that made the whole process a little bit easier. But, as far as confidence goes, through the years of being a part of the club, I grew enormously. Way too much, some would consider, but yeah, confidence and the self-esteem, if you like, that I actually got from the club was, life-changing in many ways.
You mentioned, Tony, that you had debates with teams outside of the prison. What kind of people would come and debate you guys in Risdon?
Lots of politicians and lots of influential people within the community, because we debated. Well, Spartan Debating Club was a part of the outside roster, and they actually won the Tasmanian Debating Championship, I think in the early 80s, as part of the proper roster. So we had a lot of people and influential people over the years come in and debate with us.
What was it like when those influential people and those clubs came into the prison? What were those nights like?
Oh, it was fantastic. We didn't get many benefits in Risdon as a prison, but, we had cakes and sandwiches and coffee, and, we tricked it up a little bit and made it an enjoyable night. But it was also really nice to connect with, influential and just other people within the community, because, we had rostrum clubs and university and Toastmasters and clubs like that.
One of the debates you had with the Rostrum Club was about marriage. Tell me about that debate.
That was, may rest in peace, that was an external debate. I think it might have been the 25th anniversary of the club. And the topic was that we should renew our marriages licences every 5 years. And we were the affirmative. And the three guys on the debate was myself as first speaker. I was dressed, because I was president of the club at that time, and I come up with some little ideas that they allowed us to do. And I, as first speaker, was dressed in a full wedding dress, veil, the whole lot, the lipstick and and all that sort of stuff. And I was the wife, of course, not something that everyone wants to be in prison, but, you know, for the sake of the debate, it was a fantastic night. The second speaker was Chopper Reed, and he was my husband, right, for the night. And the third speaker was Faulty, and he was dressed in a judge's uniform, like a Supreme Court judge uniform. And, of course, it was to be a funny debate. And me, as first speaker, got up and I just attacked my husband big time. I put him down that much.
This being Chopper Reed in this case.
Yeah, being Chopper. Yeah, and so I really hammered him. And then he got up and then it was my turn. And seriously, I've never heard a man conversate and chat like he can. He could make you seriously think that white was black. He was a phenomenal chatter, and he of course got up and hammered me big time. Hammered me big time. Yeah, I'd never done it again, but yeah, I'm pretty sure we won the debate at the end of the night. But yeah, it was a great night. We were all dressed up and having a brilliant time.
The judge might have been too scared to let you lose, I'm wondering.
Well, it was all. Well, we did mention that quite a bit in jest. You know, if the scores don't go right, well, you just might not get home. Yeah, but we had external adjudicators and proper adjudicators, like all that sort of stuff. And you know, when we won fairly, and when we lost fairly too. But yeah, we've had some fantastic nights. I remember me first external debate, and it was first night when our family were allowed in. We'd managed to allow that to happen. Anyway, my mum's sitting there and she's freaking out about the whole prison situation for one, and I can't remember what the laughter was better than sex. Anyway, I walked out from behind the door, and because no one knew we were doing this, dressed in this seems to be a bit of a following for me, but it's not. I was dressed in a maid's uniform, fishnet stockings, blonde wig, red lipstick, all the deal, you know. I looked like an absolute hooker in every sense of the word. And I've come out to speak from behind the door. Mum didn't know it was me. But as soon as I opened my mouth, she nearly fell off the chair, seriously.
What was special about having your family, having your mum come in to see you in that debating club?
Well, you know, I think it was one of my first or second times in prison, and my mum didn't understand what the system was like. You know, I grew up in Risdon Vale, and you know, there was a road, Lantana Road, and then there was the prison property. So we were always pretty close to the prison. Well, you could say I spent me youth next door and me adulthood in inside. So Risdon Vale through and through. But you know, my mum didn't understand prison and what it was like, and for her to see, you know, that it wasn't so regimental, so dangerous, you know, not a good thing to see when your son's dressed in a dress in prison. But she got to feel a little bit more relaxed and of course spend some time with the son when she doesn't usually get to do that. And it was the same with every other family member that come in. they were truly treasured nights. And, if you're getting up and to speak, you can be courageous, you can be bold and, show off a little bit if you like. And you just get a sense of togetherness with your family that you don't really get so often these days, even outside of prison. So it was brilliant.
You were saying that debating club gave you confidence. I guess it's also a way of teaching to have an argument without violence, to have an argument just with words.
Well, the superintendent of the prison once, because I was jail representative for a long time, and went from yard representative to jail representative, where I stood up on behalf of every yard except for the protection yard. If we had a problem, we were able to discuss it within the system and with the uniform, and we were able to get a lot and understand a lot. So, but he said to me one day that I was like the Pied Piper of people. I said, "Why is that, Mr. Harris?" And he said, "Well, you talk and everyone follows." And that's what the debating club taught me. It taught me the skill to have a level playing field conversation, but also it enabled me to be the voice and stand up for something if it isn't right.
Before that night where you pretended to be man and wife at the Risdon Debating Club, had you had much to do with Chopper Read in jail?
Oh, you do in a prison sense where you've got 5 yards in line with each other, and while you don't hang out with each other 24 hours a day, you see each other in passing. It's just that sense of community that you get when you're outside living in a neighbourhood. It's exactly the same thing, just shrunk to a massive degree, and you've got no choice to connect with some people, all the people. It's, the relationship where you have with them depends on who they are, I suppose. But yeah, I knew Chopper, I knew him quite well.
And how was he to get on with?
Oh, he was, he was fine, Did I believe everything he said? No, not at all. Did I like a lot of things he said, in particular about people that I'm close to and my mates? Well, no. But it's his story, and, he'd never done anything wrong by me or by anyone else within the system that I was in. So, very likeable.
You say, Tony, that you grew up right next to the prison there in Risdon Vale.
Yeah, they hated me well before I got there.
What do you mean?
Oh, well, as kids, especially we grew up in a working class neighbourhood, and, there was 5 lads in the street, and we always used to hang as youngsters, 8, 9 and 10, and we used to build forts over in the prison and build tree houses.
Like in the prison?
Oh, in the prison grounds.
What, you used to break into the prison grounds as a kid?
Oh, well, I did sneak in there once when they were building a hospital, but I didn't. Well, now everyone knows about it, but anyway. But we used to just jump the paddock. It was just an ordinary fence. We were in the paddock, but it was prison grounds and you weren't allowed on there, and they were always telling us to get off and pulling down our forts and doing all that sort of stuff. So I've always had I was going to say love-hate, but it's hate-hate relationship, really.
Living so close to it as a kid, was it somewhere that you thought, I want to avoid being on the inside, or did you imagine that you'd be there one day? How did you think about it?
I never imagined that I'd be there as a youngster, and, you think a lot of things, and I remember the sirens used to go off sometimes, and they'd just test them. And I'd always think that someone was escaping, and I'd straight under my bed. I was never brave as a kid. If they were getting to me, they were getting through me 3 sisters first, don't you worry. But, it just had that scary feel to it. I remember as a youngster, we used to, like in playing in the street, we used to hear a lot of whistles going off and, well, what I thought was screaming, but it was yelling and carrying on, within the jail on a Saturday and Sunday. And, of course, you think, blokes are getting attacked and bashed and all that sort of stuff. Well, it wasn't until I got there that they, that's the sport day. They play football on the weekends. So I had a couple of I've had a couple of other experiences in other jails in Australia, but walking into Risdon as a 18-year-old, I was scared to death just because of that stuff that I heard when I was growing up. You know, I was terrified.
What were things like at home when you were a kid, Tony?
I was pretty lucky. I was pretty lucky. I had a beautiful mum. She's been dead 25 years now. I still miss her, but I had a beautiful mum and three pretty good sisters. Mum had an abusive partner that we had to deal with for a long time, but as far as mum and my sisters go, I grew up in a fantastic house. I was loved. I was cared for.
How did you first get in trouble with the police then, as a young bloke?
Now, I'm not blaming this on the people that I hung with, but, well, it was just part of the deal. I was hanging with a particular group of guys at school, and I was thinking about it on the way here, and, you know, I'm not too sure whether we went off with an absolute intent to break into someone's house. But anyway, off we went, and one lunchtime, and I found, I think it might have been $80 on an envelope stuck to the door for the woodman. And that's when I thought, well, that's pretty cool when you're when you're 11 and 12 and 13, $80 or $100 in your pocket, you feel like a millionaire. So it sort of went from that, finding envelopes on doors left for the milkman or the woodman, to actually going into the houses ourselves. And I think over a period of time, we basically done a street in Gilston Bay, minus a few. And but it just went from one thing to another, really.
And what were you doing with the money back then?
We just spent it we wasn't getting, hundreds and thousands of dollars every day. We were just spending it, buying cigarettes, going to the shop and, being the rich kid for the day or two, really. Yeah.
And
my parents never knew.
What happened when you were caught? How did that play out?
I remember me going out on my own, and from memory I was on my own, but I got seen, and I laugh because it's a little bit silly, and but I got seen climbing through a house window at lunchtime, and I just happened to be the only person just about in the school that was wearing the whole school uniform. So, it went from there. Yeah, and it went from there.
And this was your own neighbourhood, as you say, a working class neighbourhood, families like yours. You didn't feel any guilt or conscience about stealing these people's money for the woodman and the milk money?
Well, and in saying that, I felt a little bit defensive then because I never broke into houses in my neighbourhood. This was in Gilston Bay, where we went to school, at high school. So, it wasn't in our particular neighbourhood, but it's funny you mentioned the word conscience, because I was given a lecture to Rob White's criminology students down at university one day. I used to do a little bit of that for Rob. And I was asked a question from one of his criminology students, honours students, and it was a question that I never forgot. And it was probably, she said, well, haven't you got a conscience? And I had to really think about that. I have. I'm very conscious of people and a lot of situations, but I never really thought about it. I was never attacking the person. I was always, it was always about the property or the money. But the conscience is a question that played a big part in my rehabilitation over my later years. But it's not that I didn't have a conscience. I was, once I started getting money and breaking into places, I developed a thrill for it. It was exciting. It was really, for me, an adrenaline kick. And I've always said, I've said for quite a while, I see 3 reasons for crime: need, greed and addiction. need, you can do something about it. If you need a loaf of bread, well, go out and get a job, or maybe steal a loaf of bread. You can fix that. Greed, the more you got, the more you want. That's not so much something that you can change so easily. But for me, mine was addiction. You know, I was addicted to the thrill of climbing through a window. And, you know, I wasn't looking through panty drawers and all that sort of stuff. I was just in there to do a particular thing, find a money box, find a drawer with money in it and that sort of stuff. It just became extremely exciting.
When you look back then, do you think there would have been anything that someone could have said that might have sent you down a different path? Would there have been any way of getting through to the young Tony?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But the way to do it, you know, my dad passed away when I was 9. And, you know, I was, and I'm not saying this is an excuse at all, but, you know, I started, you know, really not caring too much then, I suppose. Not caring about the people around me, but, you know, I lost my way a little bit.
So you think if you'd maybe had that father figure, if you'd had a good father figure or someone in that role, maybe you would have had a different kind of guidance?
Absolutely. I remember in the Navy Cadets, me and a couple of kids in the street used to go to Navy Cadets. I had the uniform on and, you know, loved it. But because that was where I had my first cigarette, I was never allowed to go again, you know. I joined the Merchant Navy where you do the sailing ships, you know, and the tankers when I was 17. And I was in Sydney having a good time when I got the call from Mum saying, look, we've got a boat here for you, you know, just come back to Tassie. No, Mum, I'm not coming back. You know, those were, you know, if I'd have made the right decisions and someone to sit down and tell me about it, you know, and discuss it with me, you know, my life could have been, so different. I think about that often, but one of those opportunities lost, you know, if I'd have realised what I was actually doing beforehand.
You left Tassie after you finished school and came up to Queensland. How did you end up in Boggo Road?
We were in Cairns. I robbed a particular motel. He seen me walking out the driveway, called the police, and a chase ensued, and I actually got away. But I just happened to be about the only person that was sweating in an air-conditioned shopping centre. So got questioned by the detectives, and one thing led to another, and I ended up in, I think, Boggo Road for 3 months. That was my first prison experience, yeah.
And what was it like inside Boggo Road, especially, I guess, as a Tasmanian? Who gave you the rundown of how to survive in there?
And seriously, I mean, I'm a 17-year-old Tasmanian, and they noticed the fact that I didn't even have hairs on my legs. You know, I was absolutely terrified. I didn't know what was going on, you know, all the way down from the Sunshine Coast to Queensland. You know, I was thinking you get raped and attacked and bashed after death and all the stuff that you think about, you know, not experiencing actual prison. I'd been in boy zones before, but this was a different level. And I was lucky enough to see the barber. The barber was the first prisoner I actually spoke to, big, thick-set fella. He sort of set down the ground rules for me. You know, you mind your own business, you just do your time, defend yourself whenever you have to, don't ever let anyone hit you. You know, and told me the rules. You never tell, you know, you mind your own business, and that's exactly what I'd done.
How quickly did you have to defend yourself?
After about 3 days.
What happened?
I was sitting down in the yard, small yard. I was in what they called the boys' yard, and that was the guys under the age of 18. There was some serious crooks in there, and they weren't even close to being that old. But, you know, there I was, and I was sitting on the card table one day watching a game of cards, and probably the only fella that I really spoke to in conversation was told by someone in the yard to obviously king hit me. He did off the table, and I sort of knew before I hit the ground that I had to fight this bugger. Anyway, I did, and luckily enough, he was weaker than me. So it was just the fact that I defended myself, and you sort of, you sort of let be. Yeah. So it was a pretty scary experience. I mean, I seen the next day someone else happened, same thing, new to the yard like me, a bit bigger than me, probably older. He laid down and copped the beating, obviously because he was scared. And for, the next week or so, couple of weeks that I was there before I went to Woodford, he copped passions most days. So, it's an extremely, well, there's no other way to put it, it's a terrifying experience when you first go to jail.
Podcast and broadcast. This is Conversations with Sarah Konofsky. You can find more conversations anytime on the ABC Listen app.
When you found yourself back in Risdon Prison down in Tassie, did it feel, Tony, like, I don't know, that it was kind of inevitable, that this was going to be life in and out of jail, or were you not thinking about what the future might be?
I never really thought about it. Thinking back at it now, I never, and all through me 20 or 30 criminal life experience, that it was always about the moment or tomorrow. We didn't think too much further because that wasn't what it was about. I never thought to appreciate money or put it away. I had no understanding of that sort of stuff. I'd never learnt it and never really experienced it. Money was there one minute, gone the next, and I was quite handy at getting money. So, you very rarely think of years ahead. I mean, looking now as a fellow that's been out of jail for 17 years and 57 or 8, however old I am, I didn't expect to get this old, Dom. Seriously, I never did. For me growing up, I wouldn't have seen myself past 30, 35 because, the life I lived, I lived with addiction and all the dangerous stuff that you can be involved in along the way. And, I've been extremely lucky. I should be dead over 100 times because I'm not the smartest bugger when I've got a belly full of scotch and an arm full of drugs and all that sort of stuff. And, I didn't expect to get this old, seriously. So, did I think about my future? No, not at all. Yeah.
One of the crimes you spent time back in Risdon for was safe cracking. How did you get into that?
Oh, it's not exactly safe cracking as the way most people know it. I didn't stand up next to a safe with a doctor's stethoscope and pick the numbers. That wasn't it at all. But we used to open safes, yeah. I mean, that was just the progress. Years inside, it's just stuff you learn over the years.
Is it true you robbed a judge during that time, Tony?
Yeah. Well, we didn't know he was a judge at the time. I mean, the Crawford and Crawford sign out the front of his lawyer's office might have given us a clue if we'd have been thinking that way. But, we got a judge.
Then how did that play out for you when it came to sentencing?
Yeah, no, not real well. Not real well. and me being the non-thinker that I am sometimes, I'm actually trying to get in front of Mr. Crawford, right, because he's good on sentencing.
Even though he was the one you robbed?
I didn't click until he started yelling at me. And then it clicked. Oh, I might be in a bit of bother here. Yeah, so I didn't get to see him in sentencing, thankfully. But, one judge is friends with the other, and I ended up getting 3 years. But, we probably should have been a little bit more careful or picked another option maybe. But anyway.
When you did get out of jail in Tasmania for the last time, did you have a home or a job to go to?
No, not really. I had a partner that I loved to bits, and she passed away 4 years ago now. But yeah, I used to either go home, but there was a lot of times that I've got out of prison and been, well, homeless, yeah.
Does it sometimes feel on the outside that it's safer or at least, I don't know, more known to be back inside?
Oh, well, the thing is with prison, I've done a long time in prison. There's been lots of intervals along the way. But, you know, with doing a long time in prison, it's very regimented. And especially when you're in such a prison like Risdon, it's very neglectful and it really doesn't push towards opportunity and life change and all that sort of stuff. But what I'm trying to say is institutionalisation, and I didn't realise I was institutionalised until probably 19 years ago now that, you know, I was really struggling with being free. I didn't, I wasn't living in the life that I'd lived all my life. You know, I wasn't drinking, I wasn't doing drugs, and, you know, you have to face all your demons. And when you're doing a long time in jail, you become institutionalised and you actually forget how to live. You really lose all your social and living skills if you're doing long-term prison time.
One of the places you could get work with a prison record was on fishing boats. Tell me what happened on one of the first boats you worked on.
Well, it was Bridport, and it was me. I'd always wanted to go out in a fishing boat. Anyway, I applied for this job and got it. And I thought, fantastic. It was my first time out in a boat, you know, and I had that, you know, Titanic experience where you're up on the front of the boat thinking that you're king of the world as you're going out to sea, you know, and I was loving every bit of it. But when it started to rain, I was getting wet up the front of the boat where I was sleeping. Anyway, it turns out that the skipper was an absolute arsehole, and there was me and two other blokes on the boat. And it was a shark boat, and on the 10th day it was doing me head in. So I just said to him, got up one morning, I said, look, man, I need you to take me to a tree. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, I don't care where it is, just take me to a tree. I need to get off this boat. And he said, oh, no, I'm sorry, we've got another 10 days to go yet. And I thought, well, this ain't going to be fun. So I thought, I seen in the distance, right, Swan Island. And I thought, well, my little head went overtime, a man with a plan. I thought about it overnight. I thought, well, I'm going to swim to the island, jump off, swim to the island. I didn't know anyone was on there. And my plan was, set on fire, someone's got to come to put it out, and hip, hip, hooray, I'm saved. But anyway, I got up in the morning, packed a bag that I'm going to need, and put on 2 pairs of pants and a sheepskin jacket. Because I'm not a thinker, as I said. Anyway, I've gone up and I said, look, man, are you going to take me to that tree? And he said, no, I told you we've got another 10 days to go yet. So I said, all right, then, see ya. And walked up the front of the boat and dived off like an Olympic swimmer.
Do you remember what that water was like? I mean, how much ocean swimming had you done?
None. And thinking about it now, we was fishing for shark, but anyway...
And what, you just swam towards where you saw this island?
Yeah, well, I jumped in, dived in, and, well, I started to sink because I had too many clothes on. I'm still a bit dirty on losing that jacket. But I got all my gear off and I lost my bag and it had my matches. I lost everything, yeah. So I remember after a couple of hours I was swimming towards the island and I made it up onto the beach. I couldn't walk straight, you know, I was in bother. I was struggling.
You must have almost had hypothermia swimming in that water.
I did have hypothermia. If there wasn't the lighthouse keeper on Swan Island, turns out there's a lighthouse keeper on there. And I can't remember his name. I wish I could, but a lovely, lovely fella. He's found me half dead in his front yard.
What did he do with you?
Well, I come to in the shower. Right, they had the shower on me, screaming me tits off because hypothermia really hurts, right? So they've dragged their double bed off their bed and dragged it outside because it was a lovely sunny day. And like we sat down and had a conversation. Like he said, "Where'd you come from?" And I said, "Well, I jumped off a fishing boat." And he said, "Oh, right, you're the first person. We've had lots of visitors, but you're the first person that's ever swam." Anyway, we're having a chat, and search and rescue got on his radio. And they said, "Well, look, I'll say Peanut because that's, some Peanuts jumped off a fishing boat. Do you want us to come and have a look for him, or do you want to go and have yeah, do you?" He said, "Oh, he's sitting in my kitchen." and they said, "Well, do you want us to come and get him, or do you want to fly him back to Muscle Row Bay?" And because I didn't really want search and rescue to come and get me because, I'm a criminal, and if they'd have got me, they probably wouldn't have let me go. He put the bed out the front and made the bed up for me. They cooked me and baked me on and everything. I spent the day there. It was fantastic. Taught him how to catch rabbits and all that sort of stuff.
You taught him how to catch rabbits?
Yeah. For a lighthouse keeper who didn't have many wildlife skills. But anyway, lovely fella, and, beautiful group of people. It was a little bit of an adventure.
And then he flew you back. What was the flight like?
Oh, it was pretty cool. Like, we got in the plane and he just flew straight off the edge of the island and off we went. But we flew around the fishing boat that I jumped off. and obviously I didn't know this at the time, to get the rego, and he sent the skipper the bill for flying me from Swan Island to Muscle Row Bay, which I thought was pretty cool.
That's pretty cheeky.
Yeah. But as it turns out, he was a maggot of a skipper and always has been. And the other two guys that were on the boat, they were on there for another 10 days. He paid them $200 each with a cheque to bounce. So turns out that he was a bit of a rat bag anyway. But funny thing about it, I'm laying in the lounge room floor in Rose, and one day and the phone rang, and my lady answered the phone and she said, "Oh, it's that skipper of the boat." I said, "What does he want?" And she said, "I don't know, ask him." So I got on the phone and I said, "What's going on, man? What do you want? What are you ringing me for?" And he said, "Oh, I just wanted to ring you. I really liked the way you worked." And I'm not joking, seriously. He said, "I like the way you worked. I want to know whether you want to come back out again." And all I could say to him was, "Listen, you peanut, I jumped off the first time. What do I want to come out again?"
It must have been pretty desperate for crew, is all I'm thinking, Tony.
Yeah. Or maybe he wanted to get me out there and just throw me off and use me for shark bait, just to, to pay me back for the flight fare back to Muscle Row Bay. Yeah.
You spent time on another fishing boat, the Diana. What kind of boat was she?
She was and still is, a long line fishing boat down here for mules in Tasmania. Yeah, that was magic, a big boat, and we used long lines. We used to catch blue eye and pinkling down here in Tassie, and then we'd bugger off up to Sydney for 5 or 6 months of the year and go up there and catch kingfish and moe. But, yeah, life-changing experience for me. One of the best things that I loved it to bits. I worked for 3 years for Mullers, and, I was earning pretty good money, because you do on a good boat. And, yeah, I was living the dream. I loved being out in the ocean. And it came at a really good time for me. I was around 43. And I got up one morning. We'd get up at 5 in the morning to shoot away the lines, go and have a nap for a couple of hours and get up at 8 and then start to fish. But I was up about 4 one morning, and I was laying on the fish hatch, is where we store the fish, just laying there staring up at the sky. It was, dead quiet, nothing but the stars and blackness and me and the boat. And I was staring at the sky, and it was that time, the first time, that I'd actually really started to appreciate me freedom and being free. And, like being in prison, one thing, especially when you're in there for a long time, over a period of time, one thing that you sort of don't really do is look up. at the sky, because there either isn't one or all you see is the bars. So, you tend not to look up. And I really didn't for a long, long time. Well, right up until I was 43. And it was amazing for me. I started to really appreciate and understand my freedom for what it actually was. Yeah.
A while after you finished working on boats, a companion came into your life that you still have with you now. Tell me about her.
Yeah. She's my little bestie, Princess. I got her, I call Cindy my life partner because I love her for the rest of my life. But I got her after Cindy passed away. 3 weeks after we passed away, I took a friend of mine up to get the brother dog to my dog, a little English Staffy. Yeah, and when they brought down her dog, they brought down Princess as well, and she was a beautiful little brindle colour, like a dog that me and Cindy used to have. And I heard straight up, Cindy say from upstairs, "Take her home, Tony, take her home." So I did, and the best thing I've done in a long time for many reasons. I got her when she was 6 weeks old, and when she was 8 weeks old, I was down Margate, staying at the back of a friend's in my camper. I really didn't have anywhere to live then. In my camper, and I fell asleep with the gas on. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, she's bit me on the nose and woke me up. Yeah, I had gas in my eyes and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, if she didn't bite me on the nose, only time she's ever done it, if she didn't do that, I probably wouldn't be here. So we've gotten extremely attached from there. She comes everywhere with me. I'd be lost without her. I don't sort of tend to mix with a lot of people too much, and single lad, and I just got me, my dog, 5 budgies and 6 goldfish.
This is Conversations on ABC Radio.
What are you doing for work now, Tony?
I went from a fisherman, because I was a fisherman for over 10 years and I loved every bit of it, but when I got Princess, I sort of couldn't leave her, so I can't take a dog on the boat, so I had to start up fencing home maintenance and gardens, and I've been doing that. That's what I do for work.
Like a lot of ex-prisoners, it was hard for you to find your own place after you left jail. Tell me about the day you moved in to your first place by yourself.
Oh, it was amazing. I was lucky enough to do some work for a fellow who visited the pub where I used to drink at, the Prince of Wales, and still drink at. And Jacob, he's a lovely fellow, and I ended up doing a unit for him, one of his units, redoing the floors and the kitchen and all that sort of stuff, and he liked what I'd done. He knew of me situation, and he had a unit in Lena Valley, and he let me rent that, and I've been doing that for 4 years, and it's amazing, your own sense of space. So I don't have many people there, and I've become quite protective of my spot, but this is, for me, as an adult, this is the first time that I've actually lived by myself without being under the instructions or guidance of a uniform or a skirt. You got to understand changing your life, not going to jail. You got to change your own identity, and for me, getting my own place to live and being independent and having to sort out your money and be able to pay your rent and do all the things that you need to do in a normal living lifestyle. You lose them skills when you're in prison, and while living on the boat gave me an absolutely new sense of freedom. The other thing that has been extremely positive in my efforts to change is the people that I hang with now. While I've still got my old circle of friends and still lucky enough to, have my mates that I've always had, we just don't do the things that we used to do. But I've had a pleasure of meeting a particular group of people that have been fantastic in helping me stay on the straight and narrow, if you like, help me in many, many ways to identify as Tony Bull rather than Ted Bull. You know, I lived a life of 40-odd years being Ted Bull and a particular identity and that sort of stuff, and I hid in that for a long time, you know. It's really sometimes a difficult process to change your own sense of self and who you are. I won't mention names, but Daves and Daves, you know, I know a few Daves and, you know, they've been extremely important of showing me who Tony Bull is and really liking Tony Bull. That's been probably the biggest life changer for me is, you know, I'm accepted in a particular crowd and I'm seriously the odd one out. I'm an ex-criminal and I'm hanging with, you know, insurance people and millionaires and all that sort of stuff. The Battery Point elite, you know, that's... seriously, I'm the odd one out, but I fit like glue in many ways and, yeah, it's been a pleasure for me, really. But, you know, I've been awful lucky as well.
Tell me about the program that you're trying to set up in Hobart for guys in the situation you were in back in the day of leaving prison without much to head into.
Well, I've always been a part of prison advocacy and I mean, I really like to say, you know, why can't a young fella go to jail, a car thief, and come out a carpenter? What would you rather, someone build your house or rob your house? All that takes is opportunity and education. Education and opportunity. Why don't they do that? But for now, I'm involved with the Red Cross and their Justice Division. Over last year, we were trying to develop a program where a prisoner getting out of jail that wanted to change his life and do something different would be connected to a mentor, and that mentor being me. I'd be the shoulder to lean on if you wanted, and I can see the things that can happen and I can entice you to probably go a different way or make a different choice. So I was to be the mentor and I took this to heart and become really passionate about it, and I still am. I actually called Matty asked me to name it, so I called it the Beth Program. After my mum, yeah. And for the sake of the program, the Beth stood for belief, empathy, trust and hope. Yeah, unfortunately, we never got the funding for it last year, but we're continuing the process and hopefully that we'll be able to bring it to life in one form or another.
You know, you still live in Hobart. What's it like when you go past Risdon Prison now on the outside?
It's sort of funny, and I'm glad you asked me that question because I'm getting a shiver up my back thinking about it now. For 17 years, once I got out of jail last time, I decided that I wasn't going to go back. You know, I didn't mind representing once, but, you know, now it's not the case. But one of the things that I used to do and still do, at least once a month or twice a month, I used to catch a bus over there when I never had a licence, but what I used to do, because I grew up in Risdon Vale, I used to catch a bus from town and go around Risdon Vale, the suburb of Risdon Vale, and go down memory lane because I loved going up there. It was fantastic. And then I would get off down at the Risdon Brook Dam and I'd walk up to the hill. Now I drive. I'd walk up to the top of the hill where I can look over the prison and I can see the entirety of the jail. And what I do is look at the yards and, you know, what a lot of people do when they get out of jail is forget how they felt when they're in there. And I just thought this one day, I thought, you know, when you get out of jail, it's one of the most euphoric feelings that you're ever going to have in your life. And the last thing you do is think about the sentence you just had. So now I'm getting shivers again. Now I seriously go over there at least once or twice a month just to sit on top of that hill, have a can of beer, and just remember how I felt when I was there. And that brings me back to square one and, you know, keeps me on the path that I'm on. And I've been doing that for 17 years, Darryl, you know.
I really wish you all the best, Tony, and really appreciate you sharing your story on Conversations. Thank you.
My absolute pleasure. It's been, I've enjoyed it. Yeah, I've enjoyed it a lot. Thank you.
That was my conversation with Tony Bull. It was produced by Nicola Harrison on the lands of the Gadigal, Yagara and Turrbal peoples. Our executive producer is Carmel Rooney. I'm Sarah Konoski. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to a podcast of Conversations with Sarah Konoski. For more Conversations interviews, head to the website abc.net.au/conversations.